So let's talk about sort of life cycle aspects of labor supply. So, because market productivity and household productivity vary over the course of a life cycle. So, as people get older, they perhaps become less productive around the house, right? Or maybe they become more productive at work or less productive, right? So, one example of this is that in the early adult years, let's say 18 to 25, right? Relatively few hours of labor are provided, as a lot of people in this age group are still in school, right? But in the later years, say 65 and over, right, most people will at least partially retire, if not outright retire, meaning that, again, relatively few hours of labor are sold at this stage. And so what we see is sort of a curve that looks like this. So number of hours and age. What we see is something sort of like this, right? Is that at some point in sort of the middle of your life, right, the total number of hours that you work peaks, okay? And so, somewhere between 25 and 60, right, is where people, the number of hours that they'll work peaks, so 25 to 60, right? It peaks somewhere around there. Okay, but in this age range, most males are in the labor force almost continuously. But for women, and particularly married women, the labor force participation rate, and with it the number of hours worked, rises as they get older. So we actually see for women, I'll use blue just to make it easier to see. What we kind of see for women is sort of something that's like this, right? And it drops off, sharply. So it actually drops off around there. So sorry, not this part. Okay. So let's think of a hypothetical question, right? Suppose that we have, a saleswoman whose potential income is 60 grand per year. Okay. And she's paid on commission and is currently working at, a very prestigious company. And so she has every expectation of making, that much money per year without too much concern. And let's say that July is very productive. Okay, so July is very productive, and November is not. And let's say she wants to take a whole month of vacation. Should she take the vacation in July or November? Right? Now, intuitively, I'm sure a lot of you said, well, of course she should take it in November, right? Her opportunity cost is lowest. She's not going to make that much in commission in November, so she should give up November and definitely never give up July, right? July is where she makes most of her money, okay? But if we think about this, right, is saying November with the information I've given you, right? Saying November ignores a lot of what we've just been talking about, right? So the answer to this question is actually uncertain, right? Because maybe, right, the answer is going to depend on her household production relative to her market production. Now, obviously, her market production is very high in July, and it's higher in July than it is in November. But there can be mitigating factors that can more than make up for this, right? What if the family has children who can only take vacations in the summer months, and this saleswoman, cares about being on vacation for them or with them, right? Then it might be the case that it's worth it to her to forego the additional income in July and go on vacation then instead of in November, right? And in a similar way, lots of people who work at retail stores will request time off around December 25th, despite the fact that they're giving up holiday pay, right? Which is often at least time and a half or maybe even double time, right? Because again, they'd rather spend that time with family than earning money, right? And so there's more. What I'm basically saying here is that even economists can recognize that there's more to life than just money, right? Sometimes we don't want money. We just want to be with our kids, okay? Now, similar decisions happen over longer periods of time, or even over an entire life, right? Some people have reasonable expectations about how much money they'll be earning over the course of the next year, right? So, for example, when I was in graduate school, I worked at a cigar shop part-time, which paid me $12 an hour with a 50-cent raise every 3 months you worked there, plus a discount on cigars, which was really nice, okay? And because I always knew that I was going to get those raises each 3 months, it didn't really affect my expected income. I knew exactly how much money I was going to be receiving over the next few years. But what it did do is change my wage, and as a result, the income effect of these raises was zero because I had already taken them into account. But the substitution effect was positive because every time I got a raise, my time was now worth more, and so I wanted to work more hours. So when raises are expected and known about, this tends to mitigate the income effect because people will have already built those income effects into their overall lifetime income. But unexpected raises and promotions, etc., will cause people to revise their estimates of lifetime wealth, and these changes do lead to both substitution and income effect. And so basically what we're saying here is that we no longer are concerned with sort of our hourly wages, right? Or we're concerned with our hourly wages, but we're no longer concerned with a very short-term cycle, right? We're sort of concerned with our what we could call our lifetime earnings, right? That's sort of the idea here, is that the real analysis that we're going through is our lifetime earnings, okay? It's the reason why, by the way, you guys are willing to forego income while you're in college, right? If we tried to maximize our annual income every single year, no one in their right mind would ever go to college, okay? Because if you think about it, think about how much money you're making right now, right? My guess is not nearly as much as you could be if you weren't here, right? So if you weren't in college, presumably you could go out and get a second job if you're already working one, right? You might be able to go out and get like a full-time job, right? The salary wouldn't be that high, that's true, but it'd probably be higher than what you're making right now, right? And so the reason why you're able or willing to give that income up is not because it's low, but because you know that by foregoing your income today, you can have more money, even more money tomorrow or 4 years from now, right? And so your lifetime earnings increase. I think somewhere I read a statistic that said, you know, the increase in your lifetime earnings if you go to college is something like $4 million over the course of your lifetime, right? So college graduates earn over the entire course of their lifetime something like $4 million more than non-college graduates, okay? And so because you know that, you're willing to go to college, right? Because you want to maximize your lifetime earnings, okay? And what I'm saying in these notes here is that if I know with certainty that raises are coming, right? If I know that I'm going to get a raise next month, then I will have already taken that into account with my lifetime earnings, okay? Which means that my income effect is effectively going to be zero, right? Because I've already taken into account the fact that I'm going to get a raise, okay? So the change in my income is effectively zero because I knew it was coming, okay? But my wage changing does change my hourly opportunity cost, which means that at a higher wage, I still want to earn or work more hours, right? And so what we have going on here is sort of a discussion about what's going on. So why would someone continue to work, right? So why would someone sit at work all the time? Well, you know, if they know they're getting a raise every year, right? What we've effectively done is we've incentivized these people to stay at work for a significantly longer period of time, right? Because they've already taken into account the income effect of their raises, but they haven't taken into account the substitution effect, right? And so the basic point here is that when salary raises are fully expected or known about, beforehand, then the income effect of these raises is effectively 0, right? But the substitution effect still exists. Okay? So the income effect might go away once we take into account a person's lifetime earnings, but the substitution effect still exists and still takes effect.